Hi, my name's Steve Barrett. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of PRWeek. I'm delighted to be here with Rob Flaherty, who is the CEO of Ketchum. And Rob, I suppose congratulations are in order because you're 90 years old.
That's right.
Yeah, not you personally, obviously, but Ketchum's 90. You don't always, when you think of, the names, the old names in PR, if you like, you normally think of Edelman and Burson, Marsteller and Hill and Moulton and Fleischmann Hillard, but you don't normally think of Ketchum, and maybe people don't know the story quite as well. So do you want to quickly sort of tell us where the roots were and how Ketchum started?
Yeah, sure. And in fact, this has been an occasion for us to dig into that heritage more, and we found out a lot of things that give us a tremendous amount of pride. Here's one that most people probably don't know. We were started at the very dawn of this industry in 1923. Most historians peg the beginning of the public relations business as a kind of a professional industry to the publication of Edward Bernays' book, The Crystallizing of Public Opinion, right?
Yeah.
Everyone with a PR degree studied that.
Sure.
There were some PR shops that date from before that. There was one called Publicity Bureau in Boston around the early 1900s. None of them are still in existence. But if you think about the start of the public relations business, not just the press agency business, a lot of people think of Bernays as the father of public relations. His first book, was published in 1923, the same year we were founded.
So who founded it? Was there a Mr. Ketchum? And where was it founded?
George Ketchum was the founder, along with his brother Carlton, and they started it very much with a publicity and public relations dimension to it, in addition to it having advertising and fundraising. And just a year into it, the brothers split off, Carlton Ketchum, and formed Ketchum Incorporated, dedicated to fundraising, or as they call it now, development, for universities and foundations, and it still exists today. And then George took off with the combination public relations advertising business, renamed it Ketchum McLeod and Grove, which people who have been in the business a long time would know. That name lasted for 60 years. But this was 90 years ago. And so, as it turns out, we're the most enduring brand in the public relations business today.
Yeah. So why isn't it better known? I mean, was it more of an advertising shop, and did it go through some really tough times when the name was, not so well known?
Well, you know what? You're right. There is probably a muddying of the linear history as a public relations agency because it thrived as an advertising and PR shop for many years. For example, if some people who watch Mad Men will see references to Ketchum in their accurately curated references to the ad agencies of the Mad Men era in the 60s. It was a big legitimate ad agency with a headquarters always in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but also big office in New York. And it's probably because it was then Ketchum Communications, of which there was a unit, Ketchum Public Relations, and that lasted until we were acquired by Omnicom Group in 1997. So that probably is why. But for the record, 1923, Hill and Moulton was founded in 1927. The Bursons and Edelmans were in the mid-50s. Fleischmann Hillard, that kind of thing. Weber Shandwick, 1978. So we really have decades on every firm, perhaps except for Hill and Moulton.
I guess that George Ketchum, though, is not quite as well known as a forerunner in the same way that some of the individuals associated with those agencies.
Yeah, and maybe that's because he started so early.
Yeah.
I mean, George Ketchum died in 1975, so we still have some of the founders of the storied firms in our business with us. And certainly they were still in business and working in the 80s and 90s. And so you had the guy with his name on the door, kind of getting more visibility for that, which we, of course, George not only passed away in 75, but he had long since passed the baton to other CEOs. And so we didn't have that kind of icon attending industry events, that kind of thing.
Okay, so bringing it up to date and looking forward, which we always like to do, you've been exercising your rapidly gaining a publicity for your, how do you call it? It's whiteboarding. It's speed whiteboarding, but you're very creative, and there's videos of it on your website, and you've done it. And there's a few we've put some on our Tumblr blog. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about.
Yeah, well, you know what? We're in a visual era. Visual storytelling, infographics are very important, and so we think visual storytelling is a good way to go. And if the CEO of the company can happen to do that, then that's kind of interesting too. And it's a combination combination actually of an interest of mine. I was an editorial cartoonist early on in my career, so I like to draw. People who know me well know that I doodle in meetings.
You see, I've been in meetings with you, and I thought you were just being rude, but hey, actually, you're exercising your creativity.
And people would also say that I'm not paying attention, paying close attention.
But you should definitely check those out because they're fantastic, and we've put some on our Tumblr, and you can also see them on the Ketchum website. But what else have you done to recognise 90 years? You've done a themed thing.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure people care all that much about history in the PR business as much as we are celebrating our heritage, mostly through the lens of the values that got us to where we are now and will take us into the future. We are a future-oriented business. We're not like an insurance company that needs to stress our longevity. We're all about, sensors of social change, seeing around corners, what's next. And so we wanted this anniversary to be more about the future. So we've actually convened some important gatherings to talk about our strategy going into the future, but also two really important things that I think are emblematic of the culture at Ketchum. We are sponsoring 90 scholarships for 90 girls in Africa so that they can go to 4 years of high school. It'll fundamentally change the lives of those girls, and our employees and the company are funding that through our partner Room to Read, which is a global literacy charity that also invests in gender equality, as they call it, making sure that girls who are in a lot of developing countries pulled out of school at a very young age to go work in the fields, they start young families, and there's this downward cycle of poverty. And we're going to try and break that in a number of regions in Africa. The second thing that's taken off like wildfire, we asked our great staff around the world, would you be interested in conducting brainstorms in your office for a nonprofit of your choice? And we're already up to 90. So in keeping with our 90th anniversary, 90 nonprofits will get a free creative brainstorm around their next upcoming fundraising campaign, the core messages they need in order to compete today, a theme for their organization. So all over the world.
Speed whiteboard as well?
Yeah, sure, that too. So, I think this will have even greater global impact than we expected because our people have really latched onto it.
Great. Well, check that out on the Ketchum website, and some of it's on the PRWeek Tumblr. While we've got you here, and just finally and quickly, you've been in your new role, I guess we could still call it, as CEO for getting on for
almost a year.
Almost a year. Mm-hmm. How have you found it, and what have been the biggest differences? It was very much the planned succession with Ray Kocher, but you're in the top seat now. So what's been the biggest surprise for you, and how have you found that top seat?
Well, you know what? I don't know if it's a surprise, but it's certainly a welcome dynamic that there are tremendous changes going on in our business. Ray set us on a path and is still working very closely in partnership with me and our executive committee to make sure we were increasing creativity, our investment in analytics, global integration, and social and digital. I think what's changed just in the last year is it's very clear all that needs to be integrated, that we are all moving now, at least the top tier firms, to paid, earned, shared, and owned in a very integrated way, more paid dimensions than perhaps we even thought a year or two ago. And paid has become so much more dimensionalized than just advertising. It's paid social, it's content amplification. And so what I'm really excited about is that there is a challenge if you're leading one of these firms today to make sure your clients stay out ahead of the changes that are roiling the marketing and media world. So it's really exciting. And I have to say, linking it back to the history, the great history that we've had, I think, is a story of adaptability. 90 years you went through the Great Depression, World War II, several recessions, sadly the spread of terrorism, many challenges from the outside, and obviously many changes in the way people communicate. Literally, in our history, from radio to television, print to the internet. And so it gives me great confidence to look at that history and think about, I think we can probably make the shift to content amplification, to paid, shared, and owned communications. And so I think in my first year, that's been some of the excitement, but we also are really encouraged by the history that we come from.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations. Here's to the next 90 years.
Great.
And thanks for joining us.
Thanks a lot.